And now it's Deborah Kobylt Live.
Hi, everybody, and thanks so much for joining us today on Deborah Kobylt Live. And I'm pleased to introduce to you my guest, Dr. Esther Zeledon. Did I get the name right? I just practiced it. I'm
Yeah.
like, gosh, am I going to get it right? Dr. Esther Zeledon, who wrote this terrific book, Creating Your Limitless Life. There's also a workbook to go along with it. We're going to get into all of that. Esther is also a speaker, an author, a strategist, and a coach. And there's a lot to be talking about here as to why you even wrote this book in the first place. But in order to get there, Doctor, we first have to talk about you as a little girl. You came over here from Nicaragua with your family. You were a little girl. Let's take it from there.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me on the show. Yeah, so if I go back in my story, we're gonna have to start when I was a toddler. So when I was a
Yeah.
toddler, I was given 3 weeks to live. And basically I had a small urethra. So I wasn't filtering. So I was like yellow, yellow, yellow. And there wasn't
Oh.
any cure they could find for me, any solution, even in the nearby countries. And at that time, like my dad worked in government, my mom had a good job, but nothing, they couldn't find it. So the only place
Mm.
that they could operate me was Miami. Now, as many of us know in the United States, if you're an international coming in with no health insurance from the United States, everything's cash. It's a lot of money. So my parents were like, okay, we only have 3 weeks left. But my dad, he's not religious, but he is spiritual and does believe in energy and things. And he told my mom, let's play the lottery. And my mom's like, you're really thinking of the lottery right now? Like, we have something going on. We have this urgent emergency. This is not the time. And he's like, I want to play the lottery. And my aunt was like, you know what? I'll go with you on it. So they split the ticket, and the story goes that I chose the numbers, and they win.
Of course.
So they
Oh.
win, and with that, they were able to save my life. They were able to, we were able to go to Miami, and I was able to get the treatment I needed over a couple months. And
Mm.
when we came back, the country was then engulfed in civil war. It was starting to get really dicey. So we ended up immigrating to the United States. Now, of course, when we get
Hang
to the
on.
United States, yeah, go ahead.
Hang on, please. The all important, how much did your dad and your aunt win in
No,
the
a
lottery?
lot. They don't I think because of the conversion, they just tell me it was a couple when you converted and all that, maybe close to 100, like 300,000, half a million, let's say. But between all the surgeries, months in the hospital, right? That goes in nothing, right? And then we had to stay there. And so all of
Wow.
it gone. And so by the time we get to the US, then we're starting over from scratch. Like basically with the change in the Civil War, they lost everything, right? Everything. Like now their house was worth nothing. All their stuff was worth anything. So it's like starting from zero. So I grew up with the oh my God, they sacrificed their life, their
Yeah.
things for me, and so I grew up with this. I have to be a people pleaser. I have to be perfect. I have to be the perfect child. And then we were struggling when we got into the US, right? They didn't have a network. They weren't known there, right? You're starting from zero. And so my
Yeah.
dad started studying again and trying to figure out how to rebrand and market himself. And then my mother started gift wrapping in stores. And so I grew up learning how to coupon, how to hustle, how to be the perfect student. And at that time, right, the blueprint that I saw for myself, okay, what is success determined, and the success, how society determines it, right, is the American dream. You get an education, you get a pension job, and then you can help your family. So I was like, okay, that is what I'm going to follow, that blueprint. So I was like, I'm going to be the best student, be everything. So I got the full scholarships. I did all the check mark things. But of course, that metric also comes with you have to be married by a certain time. A woman has to behave a certain way. You have to put your head down and not make waves. And so, even though all I was doing that, right, I wasn't really living my own life. I was just trying, in a way, my purpose became just to make things better for my family. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, so as I went up the ladder, I then got into the career, and then I made it to a director position. And even though I was making a lot of impact in that career, that is when I really hit rock bottom, because I'm like, wait,
Mm.
now I have this house, this 5-bedroom house, this title, I have this impact, I have the 2 kids. By that time I had been married, divorced, and remarried. That's all in the book, a lot of juicy details and all that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was sitting there going, "But I don't even know if this is my life." Or what am I doing? Like this is not my legacy. This is not what I
Boy,
want.
how many of us are saying that when we wake up in the morning? I often wonder, is it more women than men who say that? I think yes, because I think we really spread ourselves thin. We're
Yep.
taking care of family. I mean, the men are taking care of family too, but in a different way, right? We're looking at every small detail in the house, everything. Now, I know, of course you could let it go, but I'm absolutely convinced our brains are sort of wired to sort of take care of everything, to look in every direction and make sure everything's working out well for everybody. And then somewhere along the line, we're back of the line. I know that's the case for me.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely in the back of the line in my life, which is why I actually found your book and your workbook. You do a workbook too. We'll get into that. Very, very helpful. And, by the way, when there is a workbook to go along with the book, people do it. Because if you want to make a change in your life, you really have to get up and make that change and not just read something and put it down and forget about it. So
Yep.
that's very important. Your book is very helpful. It's gotten great reviews on Amazon. I really think it's resonated with a great deal of people out there. So kudos to you there. Okay, so you had the kids, 2 divorces. What is it that you studied? Tell us about your job. What were you doing that was so like high profile, where people looking out in were going, wow, look what she's doing. Tell us.
Yeah, no, in my job, I was a diplomat. And in that time, right, it's a job that it's really hard to get into. It's really hard to get selected. And of course, it's dominated by men. And even being a Latina woman, I think it's only
Right.
Latinos were 1.8% in the agencies, right? And then if you talk about leadership position, less than a handful.
Forget it.
And so in that external, right, if you're looking outside in, you're like, she has everything. Like, and now she's in a great marriage and she's got her 2 kids. They have a great house. She can help her parents. And it's true. I was like a bank account. I was helping my parents. And then I had a full staff. And then I had, everyone else telling me, oh, help me, help me, help me. And I was doing all of that. And then I was doing great impact there. I was trailblazing new approaches for the organization, uplifting staff. I had brought humanitarian aid and development at that time, to the Dominican Republic and Haiti, but I had been in 3 other countries. So
Wow.
on paper, I was super accomplished, and I went to the top universities and everything. But what people didn't see is that all along the way, though, I had been suffering in silence. I had
Mm.
gone through, when I was 16, I tried to take my own life. And I think actually my family didn't know that until they read the book, because I wasn't very honest about it. I tried because I felt that it was the first time that I actually was going through a moment of sadness and I couldn't hide it, right? Because the high achiever, you're trying to hide, you're trying to be strong for everyone. And then when I couldn't hide it, I said, oh, I'm being a burden. I'm being a burden. And
Mm.
that's when I hit rock bottom. And I was like, oh, then I need to take away my life, right? But it's all this
Oof.
suffering we have because everyone relies on you, everyone looks up to you, that you fear that if you're being vulnerable, right, you're letting people down. And so
Mm.
what people didn't see, it was all that, right? Everything I had to endure to be there. And then still, when you get there, be misaligned.
What would you like to say to our audience, anyone out there who has thought about or attempted to take their life? Because you're here to live, you've lived through it. What would you like to say
Yeah.
to them?
To remember that it will pass, and to think about
Yeah.
that, like, I had to remember myself there, like, that the doctor gave me hope because he put me aside outside my family, and he was like, you are a gift to this world, and people need you and value you, and you are of value, and like, this thing will pass. And I needed that message, right? And like, part of my workbook exercises for people to see their
Yeah.
value add outside of like titles, like whether you're a mother or a father or a director or anything. We have a unique value that people seek us out for. And we have this way of solving problems that no one else does. And I think it's
Mm.
reminding yourself, you are important. You are of value. You're not a burden. And being vulnerability, people, it's okay. And you're not letting anyone down, because sometimes that gets so overwhelming in the moment. But that actually the people who care about you can help you through it. And it's okay to ask for help. So if anyone's in that moment, just know that it doesn't make you weak.
Yeah. But it's terrifying to me because people who have attempted and lived through it, they say, thank God they did live through it. But there's
Yes.
so many who don't. So I want to really put
Yes.
that message out there. Get help. You said the doctor made you, see your life in a way
Yep.
that you weren't seeing it. Get that help, please. It's very, very important. So here you are. You had the big house. You had everything. Do you think sometimes it's also the pressure put on that we put on ourselves for those of us who've had immigrant parents, right? Because clearly they
Yes.
probably came here with very little, and then
Mm-hmm.
we're the ones to be educated. We're the ones to sort of help raise them up. We then have children, and of course, our responsibility is to raise them up, and so on and so on. Do you think a lot of it is because of where we are in the pecking order in terms of coming to this country?
Yeah, some of that, but I would say that through my book, I've learned that this resonates with a lot of different people. It's
Yeah.
it's because the also our society values certain trajectories. And think about when we're like in Christmas and Thanksgiving, right? The conversations are, "Oh, do you have a boyfriend, girlfriend now? Oh, are you getting married?" Right? If you think about different times and decades in your life, did you get that promotion? Oh, what is your next goal? We put so much value on these check marks that then if we don't feel like we're making them or they are or we start associating validation to them, then we start putting pressure on ourselves that we haven't made it yet. We're not doing enough. We haven't given enough. Why aren't we there yet? And so it's like a combination that yes, we have the pressure of releasing the pressure of having that financial scarcity, but then there's the other part of like society, all of our narratives and everyone around us is asking us very metric oriented questions. Rarely do we hear someone go, "What is your aspiration? What do you want to be sought out for? What is the legacy you want?" And
Mm.
tailoring it to that individual rather than a societal check mark and metric.
Doctor, I have to tell you, I remember many a holiday where my children were, at the dinner table or in the kitchen, by the buffet area, and there would be certain family and friends literally nudging right into them saying, "So, what are you thinking about college? Where are you thinking of
Exactly.
going? What about your
Exactly.
brother? Is your brother going to be a Major League Baseball player?" I mean, they couldn't believe it. By the time people left, they were sweating to the point
Exactly.
where I'm not kidding, to the point where they say, "Do we have to invite them next year?" Because we didn't do that because I understand the
Yes.
pressures and I did want to, hopefully that they would follow what it is that they enjoy and not
Yes.
necessarily to make the money. You have to make some money to live, right? But
Right.
that really put a lot of stress onto them. So you're right. Do you also think it's more the American culture or is this sort of permeating around the world? Tell me.
This is worldwide.
Ah,
I used to
okay.
believe, even like, when people ask me about the title, right? Because I have Chasing the American Dream crossed off, and instead it's about
Yes, you do.
creating your own limitless life. People ask me, oh, but then that's only going to be the US market. I'm like, no, as a diplomat, I worked all around the world.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. People are leaving their countries, people are looking outside their city for opportunities, trying to find places where they think they can have achieve a certain metric. Right, but what I found, like, globally, that stress and pressure is everywhere, right? And that's why we see
Hmm.
so many people moving. And then the truth is everyone worldwide has a mission, purpose, vision. And I remember folks used to tell me, "Well, that's a first world thing, Esther. You're thinking about purpose." And even as immigrant parents, they were like, "Oh, now you've become like hyper Americanized." And I'm
Right,
like,
right.
"That's not true." And it wasn't until I entered and went around the world and I was like, from fishermen all the way to presidents, people have a mission and vision of what they want. And of course it's
Mm.
changes. It's different scales, it's different things. But that's what makes us. All of us have a different one. And so it's not about like, oh, it's a question of privilege. We all have a vision for ourselves. We all want that. But then the pressure of what we need to do, whatever culture you're in, whatever society in, starts stomping on these dreams. And then we start thinking, oh, well, then I can't do what they want me to do. So I have to go somewhere else, or I have to chase a certain path to make other people happy and proud of me.
Mm. So tell me or tell our audience, what was that aha moment? We were like, can't do it anymore. And what did you do?
Yeah. So when I reached that melting point, when I was sitting there with everything, I had this I had to make a decision in a year whether I would continue
Mm.
going to another country and basically repeating the approach what I was doing in this country. And I said, okay, do I take this next step or do I start betting on myself? But I still at that time I was very scared because it's really
Yeah.
scary. Because one thing I will say that is unique, right, to either immigrants or people who have come from living in like with no money or poverty, is the fear of losing everything you've built. And now
Yeah.
you have people who rely on you, and it's really scary to pivot. And I remember sitting there going, well, I think, if I could raise $100 million for this organization, I must be able to do that for myself. If I can impact, thousands of people here, I should be able to do that because I see this so much of a bigger movement. because there I was doing mission and vision. I was like, this is a bigger problem. But I was scared. And
Hmm.
what really pushed me was I had this best friend, and with her, I would talk about my secret dreams of I want to start this global movement. We always have one person we share our secrets to. And
Right.
then I'm like, oh, I would love this. And she was like, Esther, that's a great idea. I believe in you. And she was my hairdresser. And she's like, I think you should totally do it. And we should totally do this. I would help you and all these things. And then one day she comes over and she's like, I've been getting all these headaches. And we go to the
Mm.
doctor and they tell her that she needs to get operated. So I help her fundraise for her operation. And it was a Thursday and she's supposed to come back on a Monday. And we're very similar in age. Well, she doesn't make it through.
Oh.
And that is where I hit rock bottom because she knew all my dreams and my
Oh.
highest aspirations, right? Including my husband, but I never shared it outside of our family circle. And when she
Wow.
didn't make it, I went to her funeral. And that's why in my workbook, I have this whole obituary exercise because I went there
Yeah.
and it made me really angry because there, everyone was just talking about their own mortality, but they weren't celebrating
Ooh.
her. They weren't celebrating her life, how I knew her. Like I knew her highest aspirations, her dreams and impact. They were all like, oh, she helped me and things like that. But I got so angry. I'm like, that wasn't her legacy. That's not her. And then that got me thinking, and what is mine? And I remember I went home and I was reflecting on it because she passed away on a November. And I went home to see my parents in December. And I sat there with my dad and I said, I've been thinking a lot about my legacy. And I don't think it's where I am. Like if I stay here another, 10 years, or I had 7 years to a pension. And I was like, if I stay here another, decade, let's say, I'm like, will I have really done the impact I wanted to do or what or my potential? And he goes to me, oh, Esther, like you're so silly. You've already done thousands. Look at everything you've accomplished. Like, no, you're just no, you're just always wanting more. And then it's the first time I blew up in front of my family. And I said,
Ooh.
no, no. And I'm like, that is not my legacy. My legacy was not sitting here and like just doing that. I'm like, this I have this gift. I know I can help like more people. And I think just saying it out loud and blowing up about it and everyone stared at me, I was like, I need to do this. And so I didn't have it all figured out yet. I knew my vision.
Right.
I decided to give people a 6 month because I'm a people pleaser. And I was like, let me give 6 months to people to transition, because they
Mm.
relied on me and I'll help them. I'll give them tools to start creating and empowering them to figure it out themselves. But then I'm going to take a chance on myself. And so that's what I did. Then I left and
Yeah.
I decided to take the chance on me and I did all the work I had been helping other people throughout my whole life with purpose and road mapping and making it happen. I channeled it and I channeled all the approach I did to follow the American dream, right? The check marks. I channeled it. Okay, we're going to use that same approach to grow this global movement. And that's when I was like, okay, that's what I'm going to do. And that was my pivotal moment. And that's led me to here. Best decision ever.
Wow.
Mhm.
Absolutely incredible. What was the first thing you did in the first place you went?
So the first thing I did, it's going to sound kind of silly, but the first thing I did was organize my entire apartment for a month. And I know people are like, why would you do that? But the thing is, it's something that clears my mind. And I was like, okay, I'm going to have a space where I can be truly visionary. So I did that and that space created that mindset that this is my vision. What is my highest aspirations? What do I
Mm.
want? What am I going to do? And who can I help? And I realized who I can help are people like me. And that's when it
Yeah.
became really clear that month. But I needed that mindset space where I'm not doing other things, that I'm actually just focusing and clearing my mind and doing that visionary work. So that's the first thing that I did.
I
Just
got to
clear
tell
my
you
mind.
something.
Mhm.
I have been in that same headspace. I have been organizing our home, my stuff, because
Yeah.
I'm also at a pivotal point a little bit. I'm not even quite sure what that is either. So I'm sort of where you were in the cleaning stage, but
Yeah.
there's something about that. It feels so
Yes.
cathartic. It feels
Yes.
amazing. I was saying to a friend, I feel great. I just
Yep.
went and cleaned out one of the closets in my
Yes.
office. And I still have a lot of stuff. I have to be honest. I didn't get rid of as much as I wanted to, but it's a start. And
It's
I
a
know what's
start.
there, and it feels
Exactly.
kind of organized, right? You do need to feel
Yes.
organized in your head. I love it, Esther.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we're on the same really wavelength there. Okay, so you started cleaning out, and then what?
And then I decided, okay, I don't know what I'm doing. I know nothing about entrepreneurship. Like I studied, to go
Right.
help the world. I was like, how am I going to start entrepreneurship? But I was like, okay, I need to find a new circle and a new community, right? Because it's not,
Ah,
I was like, I need to find people who are thinking about these things like me. And so I went online and I'm like, let me find group of women entrepreneurs that want to change the world, and then let me read some books. And then I found this incredible network of women entrepreneurs in Australia, other side of the world. And that's
wow.
how I started. I joined and then I told him, I have this vision, but I don't know where to start. And the program was a year, but it was all about, okay, so how do you start, right? What are the things you have to build out? What do I need clarity on? But while I was doing that, right, I'm like, okay, I need to learn those things and like mechanics of like growing a business. But at the same time, I was like, the one thing that was a big part of my legacy was writing a book, because when I had no money, my parents would take me to the library to read books, and that's where I would
Right.
learn about trailblazers and things and approaches. And I'm like, well, I know how to find purpose. I know how to map it out. I know how to help people with resilience to keep it going and help people in pivotal points in their life. So I need to write a book. And so I decided
Yeah.
I'm going to start it, but I want to take my time. So while I was figuring out entrepreneurship, I just started writing the book and letting it kind of flow. And I didn't
Evolve.
want to, yeah, and I didn't want to share my story at first. I just wanted to share
Mm,
the formula. And
yeah.
then my publisher was like, you have to share the story. And I was like, that's requires me to be vulnerable, but it's okay.
That's
I
hard.
left that till the last part and I
Mm,
helped myself go through that movement, but I already had 75% of the book written. So I said, now you have to commit to the last part and be completely authentic. And that process, I was nervous. I didn't sleep, overthinking. But finally, like once I pushed through, this immense sense of freedom and relief that came from that was amazing. And then I realized the importance of it, because even though I could share the formula, the story is what really puts it concrete, right? Like, not only did I do it for other people, but I did it for myself.
that was my next question, but you sort of answered it. What do
Yeah.
you say to people who are terrified? They know they need to make a change. They're sort of stuck. I mean, it's not like they're in quicksand. They're just, or their feet are in cement. They just can't get going. Please give them, a nugget of advice on what to do.
Yeah. I mean, the best thing is to think, if what are the two options, right? You either stay in the same place for 5 years. We always overestimate what we can do in 1 year, but underestimate 5. So, what
Yeah.
are just 3 small things you could do this year that
Mm,
will help you? Small things, because those will accumulate, right? So once you get those 3, it becomes a domino. Then you feel confident and you'll do 6. And then from there, you'll do 12, right? But you just need to start with 3 small actions. And
I love it.
it could be researching somebody who has the change that you want, right? It could just
Hmm.
be reading an inspirational book. But just you taking that action, you already start to feel more in alignment, because you're going in that direction that you want to go to. And it's less about the speed on which you get there and more that you get there. 5 years is not that long. If it takes you all 5 years, it's okay. But let's move in
Hmm.
that, because you're either going to be 5 years in the same place, or 5 years all the way there, or 5 years a step closer. But those still are better than not doing any action at all.
Mm. And let's talk about a few things in your book that you mentioned that people will learn when they read your book. It's a beautiful read too. It's interesting. It's fun. Hard to put down. You do talk about building a legacy,
Yes.
but I want to talk about, which is important, so we can get to that. Um, Break yourself of overthinking. Hello, I will overthink everything, including should I put
Mhm.
the, strawberry preserves in the fridge or should they go in the pantry? I mean, come on. Negative voices. So let's talk about overthinking briefly and also negative voices. How do you get that out of your head? I'm going to give you another example. I'm going to use myself as, the all purpose example for this interview. A family member is going to the airport this morning and has a long drive to get to the airport. Oh my gosh, if I'm not like completely like going in every direction. Are they going to drive too fast? Is this going to happen? Come on, that's negative thinking. So how do you rid yourself of that and the overthinking? They could probably go
Yeah.
together, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they go together, right? Because what happens is like our brain, and I kind of put them all together. It's people pleasing, overthinking, and perfectionism because they're all kind of
Mm,
linked, right? Because when we're overthinking, it's either because we're scared to hurt the person or we're
mm,
scared to do the wrong action, right? We're people pleasing. We're worried about the reaction of someone else or around us or society, or the perfectionism. Like it needs to be perfect. It needs to be the best decision for ourselves or for others. So they're really tied because then when we're thinking about that, that's when we start spinning because we're like, oh, what if I make the wrong decision or the wrong turn? Or what if I disappoint the person? Right. And it's really stepping back and being like, well, one, you like I'm going back to that. You have a unique gift, you have a unique solution, right? These people are in your life for a reason if the decision's about someone else, right? What you do and how you do it, it's not going to affect your relationship, and it's about having that expectation conversation, right? If you're not sure where you're going, it's like to be open. Actually, you know what? I can take 3 routes. Do you have a
mm.
preference? You can also give that decision off to someone else if you're
Oh,
spinning in it, right? You could be like, "Hey, what do you prefer?" And that takes away the pressure off of you of whether
okay.
that's a perfect decision, people pleasing or not. Now, if it's your own, that's what I like about the legacy exercise and about your own way of how you want to show up. Because let's say it's about you, like, oh, do I want to go to this birthday party? Or you know what, like if somebody asks me for help and you're overthinking because you're like, I have a lot of things to do, but I really want to go. Should I go? Then it's like, let's filter it out. Will I do is this something I really want to do? Or am I doing it for just to please them? Or am I worried about disappointing them? Or, am I going to be overwhelmed in time? Do I feel FOMO just because I'm going to feel like I'm left out? All right. So you got to ask yourself, is this really aligned with me? And then what am
Right.
I worried about? Like, what is the root cause of why am I overthinking? Is it disappointing others? Is it disappointing myself? Or is it about making the wrong decision? Is it about fear of losing something or losing finances or losing it all? Right? So it's like going back to that root and like really going through what is the worst case that had happened? Even if you end up taking 2 hours, let's say, to get to the airport, what's the worst that's gonna happen? So you took 2 hours. And it's really going through those worst case scenario thoughts of what's really the worst going to happen. And when the worst thing has happened to me in the past, have I still survived it? Yes.
Mm. Did you ever see there's this great bit by comedian Wanda Sykes? Did you ever see it? And if not,
No.
please, when we're done, just go look it up.
Okay.
And it's about women and overthinking. It is
Yep.
the funniest bit. I've played it for just about everybody I know. And she's talking about going to bed, and your head is on the pillow, and you're
Yes.
saying, I have to do this and this for tomorrow.
Yes.
And what was the name of my first grade teacher? And
Yep.
oh, did I forget to take the iron off? And
Yep.
that those pants don't fit me. And it's like, oh my God, we start spinning out of
Yes.
control. It's a funny bit, but it's true. It's true.
Yes.
So to your point, you have to stop, right? You have to
Yep.
prioritize. You have to clean your closet in a way,
Exactly.
right? And
Exactly.
get organized in your head. I learned that from your book. You've got to, prioritize, organize. Again, whether it's your closet or your thinking, right?
Yes, exactly. And then like, I journal, everyone is different. And I say that, right? What you've overcome, you're going to keep overcoming. And what has helped you is going to always help you. So whether that's journaling outside, anything to clear your mind, organizing, it's all unique to each person, but you got to incorporate that into your everyday. Since I naturally think worst case scenario and overthink, I journal it and then that's where it stays.
Yeah.
And then I go to sleep, right? And like logistics, I only have certain times of the day that I do logistics and tasks. So at night, I'm like, oh, that's for tomorrow at 3 p.m. That's not for
Hmm.
now.
Hmm.
Yep.
Talk to me before I let you go about the workbook. It is a comprehensive workbook. It's smart. And to your point, journaling this stuff does matter. I know everybody says
Yep.
journal. And sometimes people are like, what do you mean? How do I journal?
Yes.
Well, guess what? You've even figured that out for us. You've got a workbook for us to write down thoughts
Yes.
and you sort of walk us through it. Would you tell us a little bit
Yes.
about
Yeah.
creating
So
your limitless life workbook?
Yeah, yeah. So the workbook is nice because it can function separately from the book. So even if you don't read
Yes.
the book, you can still pick up the workbook and do all the exercises. And I
Yeah.
developed this really for, high achieving individuals or people who maybe have never even tried journaling. I have all the prompts for you there of everything that you need to dump out of your brain, right? Because it's true. Some people are like, I don't know how to journal. I haven't done that maybe since I was 5 years old, or people who even do it now. It provides that structure. I have the whole let's unpack your legacy. I have all the prompts you need to do. I have the questions about like if you have unlimited resources, what problem would you solve and how? Right? Really dump all these ideas and thinking and then see all the connections and also the contradictions that exist in your mind. But you can't
Hmm.
see that unless you've written it out. And when you write it out, it also encodes information better in your mind than with the computer, than with, talking about it. It forces you to actually go through everything that, you've gone through in your life, you're overcome. Like, what do you want to be sought out for? And that's kind of cleaning out your closet because just because you're good at something doesn't mean that you want people to seek you out for it. So really doing that alignment on like, what do people seek me out for? What do I like? What don't I like? And unless we do this work, then we're always going to be spinning in our minds and always going to feel some sort of discontent because if we don't know what it is that's aligned with us, then how can we communicate that with others? How can we set expectations with others and boundaries and all these things if we don't really know who we are? And so we need to
Yeah.
be clear on where is it that we want to go, what our visions are, where our aspirations are, what we like, what our uniqueness is, so then we can ask for it and also adjust our lifestyles to it.
Mm.
Yeah.
I will say this is a wonderful book. It's relatable, it's smart, it's there to move us forward. So I thank you very much for writing this. And I
Yeah.
especially thank you for writing the workbook because that is something. Remember, I told you I took mine to the
Yeah.
beach and I started writing in it. And by the way, there is something, you're right, about using your pen or your pencil
Yeah.
as opposed to typing it out. It's not the same sort of connection. So remember that, people, there is still something to the old fashioned pen and pencil
Yeah.
and getting your thoughts down on paper. And because
Yeah.
I just think it helps bring us to a more, a sense of clarity. So
Yeah.
I applaud you. I thank you. What's next for you, doctor? I know you do a lot of speaking, you coach. Why don't you tell our audience?
Yeah. I just wanted to add one more thing to the workbook. It also, with
Yeah.
people who have difficulty with how do I take my vision and goals and then make it to my day to day, the workbook has that for you. Has color coded calendars, has a celebration calendar. We always forget to celebrate all the things we do. We're always like in the thought negative process. So the workbook offers that as well. In terms of next step, well, I'm writing my second book with my husband, which we're super
Hmm.
excited about. So we have a second and third book in the pipeline, which is kind of like it's the next step of it, right? So now that you've created your limitless life, how do you trailblaze it now? How do you become
Oh.
a trailblazer? And then like how also then afterwards too, how do you then do this with someone else? Right? How does that work? How do you do that with, coming into joint legacies, joint visions? And yeah, so something to look forward to. That's like the next step of it. And continue speaking. Yeah, so I have some speaking arrangements with universities and companies because this all extends, right? So purpose is individual.
Everything. Yeah.
Yeah, but mission and vision is groups. It's teams. It's your job, right? If you don't have in your business a shared mission and vision, that people don't know what they're working towards. They don't know what value they bring to it, right? And that helps like increase motivation, morale, right? So whether you're in a team, a country, a community, even in your own family, it's knowing what are we working towards? What is it that we want? What do you want to be asked about, right? This applies to everything in your life on all different types of levels.
And I also want to say, you mentioned about having fun, enjoying yourself.
Yes.
People, that might be something that we've got to teach ourselves again. Go out there and have a little fun, enjoy yourself in an
Yeah.
organic way.
Yes.
So that has a lot to do with this too. And as I was reading, I
Yeah.
thought, she's right. I mean, when was the last time that we said no just to
Yep.
create some boundaries? I mean, there's an awful lot you can get out of this book, clearly.
Yeah.
Say no, enjoy yourself,
Mhm.
schedule fun if you must, right? Rest, relax.
Yep.
That's all part of it. It's almost like, you think to yourself, you don't really have to write about that, but we do
We
because
do.
we don't do it enough. So it's a great reminder that we also have to have some fun, right?
Yes. And celebrate
Yeah.
each other. We're always so
Yeah.
hard on ourselves of like what
Yeah.
we didn't do or what we did wrong, and not about like, hey, you did something in alignment today. You know,
Yeah.
you helped someone today. Like celebrate every step, not just the milestones, not just the graduations or the promotions. Or when I wrote my book, I celebrated even choosing the color of the paper, the font, the design that made the book enjoyable. You know, it's
Beautiful.
so it's, yeah.
Yeah, it is kind of fun, the front, right? Creating your limitless
Yeah.
life. It almost looks like it could be a kid's book, which I like
Yeah.
that, right? And clearly that was done by design. So thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Esther Zeledon. You really are a delight. And please, people, pick up this book. It's available on Amazon and I'm sure on your website too, right?
Yes, and Barnes& and Noble or any of your favorite retailers. Yeah.
Yeah, and I hope you go to some book readings out near me because it would be really fun to, come and meet you in person. So that'd be great
Yeah,
too.
that would
So
be amazing.
yeah. So thank you so much for joining us, everybody. And please, you can find our interview with Dr. Esther Zeledon on Deborah Cobalt Live on all audio and video platforms. We're on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and then, of course, on Apple, iHeart, and just about anywhere that you get your podcast, you can find us. Just put in Deborah Cobalt Live and Dr. Esther Zeledon. 5 stars from me, doctor. It's a terrific read, and I'm going to be recommending it to my friends. So
Thank
thanks,
you. Thank you so much.
of course. And everybody, will see you next week. I look forward to having you all join us.